get your attention, but
yeah,
you were
I didn't
absorbed in
realize
something.
I was going through these articles. Anyway, didn't realize it was so late. Sorry about the late start. It is what it is, and this one's on me, not Dave, because he's sitting there
For a
looking at
change.
me, reading the articles.
Yeah, I'm watching you, and I'm trying to get your attention. And anyway, before that, there was some kind of commotion going on. I could hear something like a cat crying or something. I don't know what kind of something like a
Oh,
bird and
yeah, you know
I don't
what it
know what.
was? Do you know what it was? I looked at the thing and it was like it's about 10 to 7 and Dave's not there. Okay, let's get quickly look at these articles. And then I shut the door. The commotion's on the TV outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when
Okay.
when I first came up, I couldn't see you at all, but I could hear the TV going
Okay.
on, and then you showed up, and but didn't
Didn't look at
notice
I
me.
didn't look at the page. I didn't look at the page. My apologies, everybody. Okay. Okay. Israel becomes the first country to recognize Somaliland. Somaliland hang on. They became independent sometime back in the 90s, didn't they? But nobody's ever recognized them. Early 90s, 91.
They declared independence in
Yeah.
1991. Now, anyone who's familiar with Somaliland, Somalia, well, up until 1991, it was part of Somalia, but these are countries that are designed by colonialists rather than the people that actually live there.
When
So
Somalia is a
the Somalia is that land that looks like a number 7, basically
yeah,
on the Horn of Africa.
yeah,
So there's an
exactly.
east-west part of it, and then there's a north-south part of it.
Yeah,
The north-south part of it goes from Puntland down to Mogadishu, and the east-west part is what's called Somaliland, and it is right there on
and it
right on the seashore there, right?
yeah, and the basically the Somaliland is east of Djibouti, and but north of Ethiopia. So actually, the quickest way to drive from Mogadishu to Somaliland would ironically be through Ethiopia if one was, if
If
one
there
was
was a
to do a
straight
straight
road.
road, yeah,
Okay, so now Somalia is all broken up. Like Somalia, there is supposed to be one continuous country,
yeah,
but historically, what is called Somaliland now, which is the east-west part of what is Somalia, that sort of thick number 7 on the Horn of Africa, if
yeah,
you look at it. Historically, what is now Somaliland used to be the British Protectorate.
yeah.
And what is now Somalia, south of that, all of Somalia that's not part of Somaliland is was the Italian Protectorate.
Yeah,
Of course,
and Djibouti also was part, I believe, at one point of the British Protectorate.
I think it was French. The French had that one.
Okay, okay. I knew it was colonial, former colonial land, but these three areas, yeah. And Somaliland got united with Somalia at the end of the colonial era, and when they broke it, and they didn't break it up per se. They joined two nations together, which is unusual, or two areas together.
Probably the only reason why anybody knows anything about Somalia now is because the Somali rebels gave the American military quite a spanking in Mogadishu.
Yeah,
Helicopter Down or something they called the movie.
yeah, Black Hawk Down.
Black Hawk Down. Black
Yeah,
Hawk
the
Down.
Black Hawk helicopter, right? Which
Yeah.
is the standard military attack helicopter, and basically they went. It wasn't actually about the helicopters. There was a ground troop that went into a part of Mogadishu to rescue some captured Americans, And the reason the Black Hawks came is the Black Hawks came because that ground operation went wrong. That's
Yeah, it was a complete.
about all I know about it. You know, and Mogadishu has been a thorn in the side of the US ever since.
Well, partly the Mogadishu government is cooperating with the West. The problem is that the country itself is broken up into areas of jurisdiction, and now the Somaliland part of it, which is that east-west part on the most northern part of Somalia, which has self-declared itself independent back in 1991, has its own currency, has its own army, has its own police force, has everything, but no international country has ever recognized it.
Yeah.
The one country that's come the closest up until now is Ethiopia. I think we reported about that here on this show, that Ethiopia wanted a port. So in exchange for recognition, Ethiopia...
That makes a lot of sense, because when Ethiopia lost the land to Eritrea, of course, is what coastal Ethiopia used to be.
Exactly. And that's a thin strip of Muslim territory. So it gets very complicated here. Ethiopia is mostly a Christian country, a Coptic Christian country, with about, I don't know, about 30% Muslim population or 20% Muslim population.
Yeah.
But everything in and around Ethiopia is very much Muslim, or to the north of it in Sudan, they have non-Muslim aspects of southern Sudan. But it gets very, very complicated here, because in Somalia is a dysfunctional state. It is pretty much, there is a government there, but the two factors that really complicate things for Somalia is Boko Haram and ISIS Somalia. These are two very powerful Islamic terrorist groups. They are,
and there's been a long history of terrorist control within Somalia, and in fact, Somalis have crossed the border into Kenya, or to the south, to actually shoot up Kenyan villages.
Yes, they have. As a matter of fact, the very famous one where they went in and they went into the shopping mall basically and murdered people. That was terrible. That one. Yeah, I think that was right in Nairobi.
That was in Nairobi. Yeah, but that was actually one that was semi-orchestrated by that British mama terrorist lady.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
But in anyway, so Somalia itself is torn apart by not only tribal issues, but there is also clan issues. But there's also, of course, the Islamic insurgents.
Yep.
It is a very it's a difficult place to be, because it's an us against you. So, Neil Ferguson's wife is from Neil Ferguson, the famous historian's wife, is from there. Hershey, her's her name, and she's quite often seen on YouTube and that. And she was once a Somalia, and she escaped from Somalia. And she talks about it being very clannish. It's very, very difficult for women exactly to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's very few, very poor country, very poor rights for women, particularly.
Oh, extremely. So this is a country that's being torn apart continually, and but the area of the country that is more stable is the breakaway part of Somaliland.
Yeah.
Now, since 1991, so you're looking over 30 years there, the Somaliland has functioned as an completely autonomously and independently.
Yeah.
There is another area to the far east, or the most eastern part of most north and east part of Somalia is called Puntland. It is it is an autonomous region of Somalia, which regards itself as part of Somalia, and but it is almost completely autonomous. In the autonomous region of Puntland and Somaliland, there's more stability in those regions.
Yeah.
So what's happened here? Let's get right back to it.
Yeah.
Why is it important that Israel has? Why is it important that Israel has recognized Somaliland when no other United Nations country has recognized Somaliland, despite the fact that it's become independent, de facto independent for 30 years? So why isn't that happening?
And the other thing about it is that that Netanyahu has actually invited the leader of Somaliland actually to Israel.
Now, this is a big problem for the Somaliland leadership, because they're a Muslim country, a totally Muslim country, like 99%. And of course, the population is in lockstep support of the Palestinians.
Yeah.
But here comes Israel, and it's got an opportunity for Somaliland, which no other country has given it. So Netanyahu is pulling a bit of a coup here. Now, the real issue here, one of the issues here in this article, it suggests that Netanyahu is looking for a place to dump the Palestinians. He wants to get rid of them. Obviously, he wants them out of Gaza. He also wants them out of the West Bank. And they have talked about transitioning people from one place to another, basically expelling them. But they have a nicer way of saying it.
Yeah.
You know,
it's expelling them without expelling them. Yeah.
Yeah, transitioning them to another place or whatever. But what it is expelling them. And one of the rumors that are circulating around here is that in order to get this coveted recognition of a United Nations state like Israel, there would be conditions attached. And then one of those conditions is, look, why don't you take all of our Palestinians? We're going to get rid of them anyway. We need a place to put them. And will you take them, kind of thing? I doubt very much that Cyril, who is the leader of the Somaliland, he goes by the name Cyril, Cirro.
Yeah.
I doubt very much he would make an agreement like that. Very much.
Raman Cyrro, yeah.
Yeah. And he goes by that. That's his name. But yeah, so he normally just goes by the name of Cyril, probably just for expeditious purposes. But whatever the reason, you have a fairly stable landmass, and it is extremely important geographically. Now, if you went there anytime, anywhere in the world, it would be a bunch of very, very arid areas, tribal areas that probably functioned a little bit in trade because of where it is in Africa. So there wouldn't have been much there except of where it is. It is right beside Djibouti, which is right where the Red Sea goes into the Arabian Sea, basically. Yeah. And that is hot territory because ships have to go through there to get through to the Red Sea.
Which is why the success of Djibouti in the first place.
Yes. And
because it's a favored Western, favored nation port by the West. So that's the reason why Djibouti was built up the way it is.
Yes, and it's been prosperous. Even in the old days, it's prosperous just because of trade.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a really good trade network there. I think back in the early Islamic times, between like about 700 and 1200, there was an extraordinary trade network going down the east coast of Africa there.
Yeah.
and from there also over to India and other places. So
Oh
there was
yeah.
this
Yeah.
enormous
It's a,
trade network.
yeah, absolutely it is. And it's a point that if you were going to stop before you head through the Red Sea and through the Suez Canal, you know, and you were stopping, picking up, dropping off, etc., Djibouti is your point.
And Djibouti, and it's very important, as we could see what's happened recently with the Houthis on the other side there, right across from Djibouti, right there in Yemen. The Houthis were able to nearly cripple the the shipping that was
Yeah.
going up and down the Red Sea through the Suez Canal.
Yeah.
Suez
Well, that,
Canal is a vital is a vital, pivotal place for the entire world to go through there.
yeah.
And the Houthis, with very little in the way of sophistication, where it was sophisticated weapons and very little in the way of money, were able to nearly cripple the trade going through the Red Sea.
And the point about that is that uh, narrows between Yemen and Djibouti is less than 50 kilometers, probably the same type of width as the English Channel and that sort of thing, and one of the greatest shipping routes in the world.
Yeah, I don't know how wide it is, but it's not very wide.
It's not very
And
wide. It's less than 50 kilometers wide.
so now,
I can see that from the scale on my map.
so you can see that the Israelis, they're what, 1,000 or so, a couple thousand kilometers away from Yemen. But if they go to Somaliland, they can put their air forces right there in Somaliland, and it'll be a quick run across the opening of the Red Sea right there, and then they can bomb the crap out of the Houthis. Isn't that good?
Mm-hmm.
But that it would be a strategic position for Israel, who are expanding all the time. It seems clear that they're going to gobble up Gaza and the West Bank because Trump has no backbone and Biden had no backbone before him. And the real issue is how much of these Arab countries or the Muslim countries in and around there are going to really support the Palestinians going forward.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, what do you call it? There's been Egypt, Turkey, and Djibouti have all signaled their opposition to this move.
Yes, everybody's signaling this opposition for it. What I've never, and we've reported this before on this show because I brought it up on this show before, and I pointed out, why isn't anybody recognizing Somaliland? And in that particular article or articles that we discussed, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, I don't know what it was very, very clear that there was a distinct society in Somaliland, even though there were Muslim nations, but their tribal affiliations were much more different than those from the rest of Somalia. They had a different background because they'd been under the British for so long that they had a different sort of outlook of the world than the ones that were under the Italians. Plus, when the British ran what is now Somalia and Puntland, it gave those areas a great deal of autonomy. They basically only wanted those areas as strategic areas in the world to put their gunboats, etc. And they had a fairly good relationship with the locals, basically, because for colonists, that is, because they pretty much stayed out of the affairs of the Somalis in the Somaliland. So that sort of feeling may be what is driving a lot of this, that they feel that they're different from the rest of Somaliland or Somalia, and then therefore going to be Somalia. Now, of course, they have this nothing simple. There is Puntland, of course, on the eastern extreme of what is Somaliland, and that is a an autonomous region of what is Somalia, they are nearly self-governing. And there is this disputed area between Puntland and Somaliland. So you have Somaliland that wants to be independent or has actually declared independence. You got Puntland that hasn't declared independence, thinks of itself as part of Somalia, but is self-governing. So there's not that much of attachment between them and Somalia. And then you've got everything other that under in Somalia, and the whole area is rife with Islamic terrorists.
Yeah.
And the poor people are, and tribal and clannish disputes.
Yeah.
It's a hotbed. So, but
Yeah,
of all
but
the
again-
areas in and around there, Somalia is the most stable.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Somaliland
Well,
is
we will be watching this. We will be watching this over the next few weeks, I guess.
Yeah, and there's other concerns too. Of course, you have. I haven't heard what the Ethiopians have said about this yet. I don't know why, and I still don't know why. When I first brought this up some time ago, I brought it up on the show, and I mentioned Somaliland, and what it was clear to me, I couldn't understand why they could not get recognition, and at that time, and I still don't understand why there is so much resistance to a place that has been running its own business for 30 years now.
Yeah.
It's been completely independent of the rest of Somalia. It has been running its own show. It has declared its independence. It's got its own currency. And yet I can't really understand why the more countries haven't recognized it. But
in a way,
looks
you'd have
like Trump
expected.
might be doing something. Looks like the United States might go with recognition in
In a way, also that surprises me, that being that the land used to be a British protectorate, you'd have thought Britain would have been one of the first to say, "Yep, we recognise."
They're just lockstep with the rest of the UN, and I don't understand it. It's never clearly stated why everybody else wants Somalia to remain as one country.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same sort of dumb logic that why does everyone want Iraq to remain as one country? Iraq was a country designed by the British in the 1920s.
Yeah.
And what it did was it took Kurdistan, it took the Sunni triangle, and it took the southern Shias, jammed them all into one country.
Yeah.
There were three independent areas.
Yeah.
And now when the Kurds want to have their independence in the north, nobody will recognize them. When the Sunnis in the center or the Shias in the south, they want to be independent from the rest of Iraq too. No, the international community says no, don't do that. So it doesn't make any sense to me if you have Kurdistan and you have the Sunni triangle on the middle and the swamp Arabs in the south, basically the Shias, the Shia Arabs in the south. There are three distinct groups there.
There are.
And,
yeah. And historically, those groups have always remained separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing to me when I look at Somaliland. It just like somebody's got to explain to me why it's so important that the United Nations and members of the United Nations will not support the independence of Somaliland.
Yeah, and also the other one is one of these is another one is why Kurdistan isn't recognized.
Well, that is because of the powerful influences of the other powers around, Turkey particularly.
Turkey, Syria, Iran, and Iraq.
Yeah, well, particularly Turkey. Iraq, the Iraq does not want to recognize it. It is functionally an autonomous area. So the Kurds actually run the show up there in northern Iraq. But Kurdistan,
and
the historical area of Kurdistan is a bit of Turkey, a bit of Syria, a big hunk of what is now Iraq and a little bit of even Iran. So
yeah, exactly.
No.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, moving on. Niagara
Yeah.
emergency departments are strained by respiratory illness. They basically had until this week, they had 85 patients with respiratory viruses, including influenza, COVID-19, and RSV.
Yeah, it looks like I had heard that there's a bunch of respiratory diseases out there and a bad flu. Where my mom is, they had a shutdown there, actually a lockdown where you actually had to go in with masks and stuff. For a while, I was used to that because of these. Ever since my mom's gone to retirement homes and now into nursing home, there's always these times where you got to throw a mask on because something's come in,
Yeah.
a bug's come into the. And these are older folk, and they like it's nearly fatal for them to get this stuff.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my mom got para-influenza last year, and she had to be hospitalized. That's probably the first time my mom's ever been hospitalized since she's given birth. So,
Okay.
So she had to stay in hospital for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
this has put this particular strain of respiratory diseases has put a particular strain on the hospitals. Now, if those who go get flu shots and stuff like that may be a bit disappointed because the flu cocktail this year was not as strong as it normally is. The flu vaccine cocktail that they put together.
Yeah.
Sometimes they missed the boat on
they
this.
got off.
Sometimes
I think
the flu begins to mutate before the inoculations go in.
Yeah, and what happened is they usually wait to see what the likely main flu is going to be before they actually put the vaccines out in September, October time, because they actually need to know there's kind of different directions which flu will go, and this year it's caught them by surprise because it changed path.
Yes, so it's still effective, though. They claim, even though it's not as effective as they wished it would have been, they've said that it's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, that because of the amount of flu going around, you're better off to get it because it is going to protect you in some ways. It's kind of a little bit like COVID when they were kept mutating over and over again, and one you had to keep getting vaccines to sort of catch up to the mutations of the disease. But here we have some pretty bad ones, and I think we're going to get some worse ones yet coming through. Imagine, and don't forget, COVID's still rearing its ugly head out there.
Yeah.
So it's still taking a life or two here and there. So even though it's mutated to a much more fluish type of disease.
But again, yes, as you say, it's still taking a one or two lives here and there. RSV is the other one. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's this has actually had a particularly bad impact this year because RSV is hitting infants and toddlers hardest.
Yeah, a respiratory
virus. Yeah,
virus, respiratory.
I knew the respiratory and the virus, but I don't remember what the S is. It's okay. We don't need to worry about it.
Anyway, but whatever the case is, there's a good art. This article is good, and I'll bring it up because there's lots of information here, advice that you can do because so many people are getting sick. The hospitals and the clinics and all that are all full. What's happening in the hospitals that people are getting the respiratory illness is such that in order to protect some people, they have to keep them in the hospital for a few days. It appears that they're that sick, and that's putting a strain on the resources of the hospitals, and so it's given up. I'll bring up the article here if I can get it, and it's bringing up some advice basically. I'll blast this thing.
Well, I'm actually going to put the link. I'm going to put the link into the comments, by the way.
Yeah, here. So these are the things here, and I'll scroll down to them. Okay, options that are available to you out there. And this is important if you're listening. You can go Health 811. So you can call 811 to speak to a registered nurse for free if you think something's happening. It's confidential advice on where to seek care.
Yeah.
So they may be able to send you to someplace, or maybe even allay your fears by talking to you. Now, the next one is primary care providers. That's the family doctors and walk-in clinics. You know, that's pretty much self-explanatory. Pharmacies, it says here that Ontario pharmacies can prescribe a range of minor ailments, including urinary tract infections and some cold-related conditions. So you can check with your pharmacy to see if they can help you with some of your complaints. They might be able to relieve some of rather than go sitting in a emergency room for 9 hours. And there's virtual care. There's virtual urgent care, same day care from home for non-emergency concerns. And you can find that at urgentcareontario.ca. So the article and finally the urgent care centers. This is more like sprains and minor cuts and mild asthma. That takes a bit of the heat off of the emergency rooms.
There's a link down here to the down in the comments to the actual article, right, by Niagara Health. All right. I thought it was important that we do that. Okay.
And then it says also, let's put out here that people who have to go to the ER, go prepared. Bring a list of your medications and any kind of and something to pass the time and a phone charger, because you're going to be there for a long time.
Phone charger, yeah, that says it all. Okay.
And if you bring in children, bring things to entertain them, toys, little games, anything.
I think leave your children at home would be the best thing.
No, if you have to take your child to the emergency.
If you're taking your child, sorry, yeah, okay. Get you. But don't bring your children unless they are. Don't bring your child unless it's the child that is sick. That's what I meant.
Obviously, I don't think anybody's going to bring anybody in the right mind. Sometimes you have no choice because there's no one to take care of them. But but mostly, I don't think anybody in the right mind would bring a kid if they didn't have to.
Yeah,
because kids get bored, almost as bored. They get bored and fidgety and misbehave almost as fast as I do when I'm in the hospital.
Yeah. Okay. Trump is going to meet Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader, next week in Washington.
Yeah, that seems to be now what's happened here. There's of course, Trump's gone in, he's taken out Maduro, as we know, but he's left the whole government in place. So the vice president is taking over for Maduro. Nothing has changed in the government of Venezuela. They are still under the oppressive sort of quasi-communist type of government that they have. What is that all about then? You're supposed to, when you went, one of the things you said you're going to do is bring, happiness to the Venezuelan people by, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of different things that are going on here. Number one, they want Maduro because of what? Because of drug trafficking. Number two, because of, whatever. They want the oil, but basically it's the oil. Oil.
And at the end of the day, I kind of get the impression, and it's, excuse me, I'm not making any accusations like this, but I kind of got the impression with all of what happened with Venezuela. It's like, well, we're taking this guy off, your leader away from you. We don't care about any of you people, but we want your oil and 100% of your oil and double production.
Yes, it's
because
very,
we
very
know
odd.
that you're lazy sons of bitches, That's now, the attitude that I'm seeing.
Yeah, well, what I'm seeing here is, Trump is now talking to Machado. Of course, that's the Democratic voice of Venezuela. She actually won a Nobel Prize for it. And
Yeah.
of course, they have an elected president, Edmundo Gonzalez Urrea. I never could pronounce that last name, but normally they don't use his last name. They just use Edmundo Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Right. And so anyway, he is an elected official, basically. So you would think the United States would then put them into place or help transition them into government. Now, they are going to talk to Machado right now, but he's much more interested in a stable environment for him to exploit the the oil resources of Venezuela. However, I'm not, and there's a lot of information out there that makes it sound as if, yeah, that can happen, but it's going to take years because the oil, the machinery by which the oil is being extracted in Venezuela, this heavy crude, is going to take years and years in order for the infrastructure to keep to get back online in order to be able to pump out the oil that it did in 1990. Back in the early 90s, it was putting out like 3.5 million barrels a day or whatever, how many a year, maybe, I don't know how many, it would be a year, I guess. And now they're down to less than 1 million barrels. Chevron is an American company that still works there and still extracts oil, and half of the oil that it extracts goes to the United States. So it's very, very unclear what Trump really has going there. He makes it look as if it's all kind of financial more than almost every other president, whether they're lying or not, will say, well, we're in it for the the democracy. Trump doesn't seem to care about the democracy part. He doesn't care about ideals, but he does care about power and he does care about money. But is he bitten off more than he can chew? Now, if he can get Machado into Washington and then start to talk about transitioning the government, but what he's going to do is he's going to say to her, look, I'll put you in government, but these are the conditions. I'm calling the shots. I'll put you there, but I'm calling the shots. And if you're not going to listen to me or do what I tell you to do, then I'm going to leave the people who are in power there now.
Yeah.
What about the Venezuelan people? Every once in a while you say, well, Trump says we're going to take all the oil and we're going to distribute the revenue to the American people and the people of Venezuela.
Yeah.
Can you really do that? You're actually running the economy of another nation. You're having a hard enough time running the economy of your own nation.
Yeah.
Can that be done? It's all a big mix-up. The kind of oil and the oil extraction that comes out of Venezuela is going to take a huge amount of investment. And this is a country that can go unstable quickly. And there could be guerrilla groups attacking oil fields. Who knows? The stability of the nation needs to be set up first before you start exploiting the resources, because you have to have a safe environment to make major investments.
Well, especially
how is that going to happen if you don't have your own people in the government?
Yeah, and especially now a foreign power has actually made such a dramatic move as to remove the president of that country. Law and order has got to start breaking down in that country.
Right now, everything's holding steady because they haven't.
But at some point,
haven't done anything with the power structure at all.
Yeah, but at some point it will start to break down because Madeira's not there.
Well, his lieutenant's there, and I don't think Maduro has to be there, because the whole Chavista government that's been in place since Hugo Chavez took over is still in place. It's been in place for 30 years. So how are you going to get rid of that?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the rule of law and order will eventually break down without the leadership the way it,
I don't know. All they've done is change the leaders. So they put Delcy Rodriguez in charge. So she's been sworn in as president. And Trump has said, for now, they're doing what we're telling them to do. And
but at the end of the day, if he comes up with an accord with Machado, things could change.
But there hasn't been any real demonstrations on the street. There hasn't been any social unrest. Basically, the people in Venezuela have not really reacted or tried to take opportunity of this to overthrow the government that's already there. I think just about everybody in Venezuela was worried that as bad as the government is, if you get rid of it, you get rid of social order.
Yeah.
And you are opening yourself up to a complete colonization again if the United States comes in with a lot of boots on the ground.
Yeah.
I think Trump's smart enough to want to avoid that. Once the body bags start coming home, the people of the United States don't like it too much. They love the quick weekend war. They like the quick weekend war where you throw a lot of bombs and you kill a lot of people and you look really good. But when the war starts to go on and you get things like Fallujah,
the Americans have never liked anything but a weekend war. Yeah, in foreign land.
They like the weekend war. That's really nice. Go in, blow up a bunch of stuff, and run away.
As soon as Vietnam, for example, became more permanent, that's when Vietnam became, one of the most unpopular wars in history.
Yeah, they got into that gradually, inch by inch by inch, but they should never have got into. But I mean, the Iraq War is a good one. Like Panama and Grenada, they were satisfactory wars. They went in there and quickly overturned the little wee governments of Panama and little wee government of Grenada, and it looked really, you could do that. You couldn't do it in Iraq though. As soon as they went into Iraq, they got into a bog. They went into Afghanistan. They had all kinds of initial military victories, but then their enemies got back together and beat them up 1,000 little cuts at a time, and that's where they had to run away.
Exactly. Okay, so we're going to be keeping watch about what happens in Venezuela. That's for sure.
Yeah, so that's now everybody's thinking of this way in a wrong way. In Canada, at least, anyway, everyone's thinking, well, this is going to be a big problem for Canadian oil production. I can't see it, not in at least 5 years, because of the way it's set up. Now, those oil refineries along the Gulf Coast there, Gulf of Mexico coast, take that, Trump, in the United States were set up for heavy crude from Mexico and Venezuela. Yeah. And they have been built. And so certainly more heavy crude coming from Venezuela could be refined there. And that may cut into some of the oil that Canada sends. But Canada is a very safe, reliable place. There's not going to be an insurgency here. Nobody's gonna.
Oh, I don't know about that. Not with this question about separation for Alberta.
Well, I doubt the knives will get out. I doubt there'll be commandos and terrorists and that
why
kind
not?
of thing.
Why not a bit of homegrown terrorism? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. I was just trying to be the devil's advocate there.
Yeah, but we could see that it's not likely going to happen.
No,
I know Canada's trying to get pipelines so it can take advantage of the Asian market and be competitive in the short term. Like in the fact too that the United States produces more oil than anyone else in the world. It exports oil and makes money off of its oil. Why does it want any more oil? It's nice to be able to control that oil because that gives you a lot more power internationally. You are now in control of the world's largest known resources of oil in Venezuela. You can get things up and pumping and distribute oil around the world and keep the price to where you want it to, because now you have an incredible amount of resources. But as far as North America goes, between Canada and the United States, not even including Mexico, between Canada and the United States, you already have about almost a fifth to a quarter of the whole world's resources right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you need Venezuela? You don't. You could get away with never using Venezuela oil because there's so much oil elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, Russia has accused the US of stoking tensions with the seizure of Venezuelan-linked oil tankers in the North Atlantic, which they seized on Wednesday.
Yeah, with a country like, it shows you that the Russia's having a hard time getting its oil. It's got lots and lots of oil too,
Yeah.
and it's got incredible resources of oil and natural gas. But what's happening? How come Russian freighters are going to Venezuela and picking up their oil and running ghost ships, basically? With what they do is they load up in their oil and they turn off all their tracking, so nobody knows where they are. Yeah. And then that way they can get illegal oil or sanctioned oil and sell it here and there and everywhere. But that's beginning to break apart because U.S. intelligence is caught up to all that.
And they don't just seize a ship in the North Atlantic without knowing what the heck is this ship is all about.
Yeah.
Exactly. The CIA has been accused of many things over the years, but I don't think they would do that in the modern era.
One thing about this whole operation in Venezuela, the drug boats that they blown up, the attack that they made, the raid they made, it shows an insane amount of sophisticated intelligence. This is very reminiscent of the intelligence that the Israelis have used against Hezbollah and Hamas, where they can catch out the most supposed safeguarded leaders of the organization and take them out, put explosives in the pagers. It's like amazing intelligence stuff, whether you agree with it or not, whether you think it's evil or good, depending on where you are.
Just on a pure technology basis you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. But it is an extraordinary level of intelligence that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
When you talk about taking out a guy like Noriega, what was that? Was back in the 80s, was it?
Yep.
Or late 80s?
Yep.
Early 90s, maybe, but whatever.
We didn't have anywhere near the technology today.
No, they took him 27,000 troops in that tiny little country to get that one guy.
Yeah.
When they went into, they took thousands of troops to take Little Wee Grenada. And now they still had quite a few troops, but they were a small group. They surgically attacked, went in, got out, got the leader of the country who lived in a fortress, basically, but able to get in, get him out, and that was it. So the level of intelligence is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And
level of technology.
They probably have their eyes on every individual in Venezuela who might be even the most modest power broker, police chiefs, generals, all that kind of thing, mayors, whatever. They probably have info on everyone. There's no escape.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Moving on back to local. Niagara Builders Association had announced their annual awards, and the company of the year went to Mountain View Building Group, and there was a special award that was presented, special recognition award that was presented to Centennial Homes Niagara. Yes.
You posted the article, so what's the significance of this award?
Well, these really are times for Niagara builders to celebrate their successes, and particularly those two companies. Mountain View Building Group have been doing a lot. Most of the new homes in Niagara Falls have been through Mountain View and Empire Homes, and a lot of the other areas, Centennial Homes has been another big builder in Niagara.
This part is the part that interested me when I read it. In his address to the audience, the NHABA CEO, Chuck McShane, noted that over its 2 terms as chair, Paul navigated the association through challenging issues, including housing affordability and development charge increases. And, oh, darn it, I just got something blocking me here. Oh, there it goes. Okay, affordability and increases and played pivotal role in securing skills development funding, which has to date trained over 320 individuals for a career path into the skilled trades. Well, obviously, the kind of skilled trades they're probably looking at is carpentry, roofing, drywalling, and that kind of thing, because they're real estate people.
Yeah. No, exactly. They're talking about the trades that actually are for building the houses. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, like it comes on top of what we were saying yesterday about how those problems within our building industry, because we don't have enough tradespeople, but yet there's still significant moves going on that they can recognize the successes that they've had locally.
Yeah, so I don't really get it. I don't know. I guess they're trying to make this. I don't know. They're celebrating their own accomplishments in a way. I still have a hard time understanding the significance of the organization just by this article. But it says stuff like their partnership with several local charitable groups have resulted in record-breaking campaigns benefiting FACTS Niagara, the Niagara Children's Center. That's a big one for us, too. We put a lot of money into that one. Hospice Niagara, Pathstones Children's, Mental Health, and Ronald McDonald House, just to name a few. So, of course, they're trying to look good to the community.
Yeah. And I also note that they've been working with people like, now I can't find it. Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Niagara, Niagara Children's Center, Niagara on the Lake Lions Club, and Project Share.
Yeah. So, so they got all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah. Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Niagara.
And I omitted Kristen French Child Advocacy Center.
Oh, geez.
And the Steve Ludzik Foundation.
Yeah, that's that there. So okay, so those are feathers in their cap. But I hadn't really even heard of the association before this, so it's kind of interesting that they have their own sort of awards. I guess I mean, sports figures have their awards, so I imagine Home Builder Association has its hand.
I'll tell you one thing. I've said it for years, and here I can proudly say that, hey, Niagara Home Builders Association, I'm watching out on your awards from now on, because I've got more interest in awards like this that actually are more local importance than I do in things like the Oscars that'll happen in a month or so.
Oh, I can't stand the Oscars.
The Oscars are the most irrelevant awards on the planet.
Well, I can understand, people going that are interested in films and the film industry, all going and getting together, the big party, etc. I can understand that, but I'm completely uninterested in it myself.
And it's like it doesn't have any relevance to me. As yes, I may have gone and watched the films, but I'm not, and I've got my opinion about what the best film of the year is. And hey, I may not have seen the critically acclaimed best film of this year because I might not have gone to the cinema, but I know what my favorite film of the year was. Was
that they had a Barney film?
No, I'm not saying. I'm keeping it to myself.
Look, I don't know what the best film is. All I know is I went to see Oppenheimer, and I thought I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, I was. I was. It was an interesting film. Historical buff like you and I would be going for it, but I don't think it would be an award-winning film.
I think it is an award-winning film. I think it did win some awards, but there's excellent acting, directing, and writing, and all of that kind of thing. So that's kind of like the things I'm looking at when I see a film. One of my favorite films was Blood Diamonds. I thought that was a really good film. Despite the fact that there was serious flaws in it, but Master and Commander, something like that, that was a superb film because
I was actually
historically accurate. It was a fiction that was historically accurate situations.
Yeah, I was watching a historical TV series, and I was actually thinking to myself, would they have used that terminology that they used in the series back in that particular day? This was something that was set in the late 50s, early 60s. And they were using some terms, and I forget which now. And I'm thinking to myself, were those terms existing?
Possibly, yeah. Well, yeah, and the way in which people spoke, some efforts have been made to find that out. There was a series in which threw me, that I forget. It was about a series in the United States in and around the time of the American Revolution, and they were thinking about accents, what kind of accents people should use and stuff, because there was all kinds of British accents coming in and other people, Germans and stuff coming in. But there's one guy, one of the protagonists, he decided to use an Irish accent, which was wrong at that particular time. So he didn't know what kind of accent to use, so he used an Irish one.
And in some respects, you use a modern American accent because you use an accent that people would understand in the modern era.
Well, that American accent was already well formed because we speak the way we do so closely to Americans right now. Is because we were colonized basically by Americans. Southern Ontario and Quebec were colonized by loyalists coming out of the United States. So the English we speak, and that was the United States, because it was very well connected. So we could see that even by the time of 1800, the way we speak now is pretty much the way they spoke at that particular time.
And the separation of the languages is always an interesting factor anyway, because one of the things we were told in school is one of the reasons why we have distinct English accent and distinct American accents is because of the separation of the languages over the 400 years since the Americas were first conquered. But I don't know that, having looked at it more recently when I'm living here in North America, I don't know that it necessarily is. And I think the main separation has come post, I'd say probably from the end of the from about 1800 onwards, 1815, let's say, the end of the War of 1812.
What?
But again, there was always been trade between the Americas and Britain.
But people from all over England came to different areas of the colonies. Add to that, there was a significant amount of Germans and things like that. There was a huge amount of Scotch-Irish that came over from the Belfast area, and they would have their particular way of speaking English too. So you blend all this in, you get a place like New York City who has distinct accent. That's pretty much created by constant influx of more and more people who don't speak English, who are learning to speak English.
Yeah, and you
go to some place like Boston who has a distinct accent, and that because the people originally settled it were from specific parts of Southern England.
And it's more Boston's more
similarly to the way they do now in Boston.
Yeah, and Boston's more upper crust than somewhere like New York is.
I'm not so sure what you mean by that.
Well, historically, I'm not talking about necessary. I'm not talking about there isn't. I'm not saying there isn't, working class people in Boston. I'm saying that the accents that come from Boston area are more because the society was more refined in the Boston region than
I
it
don't know
was
that
in other parts of the
it's
US.
historically they've traced the elements of the Boston or Massachusetts accent, which is fading now. Anyway, the
True.
from certain parts of southern England, and where the Pilgrims first came from, and the first waves of immigrants established this sort of accent there that was then carried on.
But again, you had of course Yale, and you had of course the Harvard and Yale up there as the higher class universities, and that's where a lot of the accents were permeated from.
I don't think so. I think it was
No?
more organic than that. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah. It's what I've always heard. That's what I've always understood.
Oh.
You know,
I wouldn't agree with that.
The gap between a Massachusetts or New England accent and a British accent is a lot less than the gap between a British accent and the rest of the United States.
Well, that's what I said. When the Pilgrims first came there in 1620, and that they carried a way in which they speak, which is still traceable to the areas of England where they came from, and those areas adopted that kind of an accent over because of the accent was brought to them from and it has two elements in it. The minor element is a Sussex accent, but the major element, I forget where that came from. Southern England, someplace anyway.
Yeah, well,
But
yeah.
and then, but the
The
American
major
accent
element probably came out of what do you call it? Came from Plymouth area, Devon.
yeah, possibly, yeah. I can't remember, but anyway, I read all about it.
All right.
How it was transplanted, and that's why they speak the way they do now. This is brought back to them. It's very interesting. If you want, just as an aside here, just as we should be going actually, but
yeah,
if you listen to Shakespeare in the language that Shakespeare spoke it in, they've pretty much synthesized how the Shakespearean actors would have sounded like in their own time. And if you listen to Shakespeare in that particular accent, it's easier to understand. It is. To me, it's easier to understand, and it flows much better. Anyway, just keep that in mind if you're interested in anything like that. So, but we better get out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring up Gaza again. And we mentioned Netanyahu.